Alright. Good day, my fellow Thought-O-Knots. How's everybody doing? Haven't made a video in a couple days, and I thought it was time to sit down and get in front of the camera and say a few things. Not exactly sure what I'm going to talk about, but I know what I want to talk about, and I'm preferring to avoid it, merely because everyone is inundated with information, and everyone is overwhelmed, or rather probably sick and tired of hearing about election news or information about Trump. And I don't blame them. I made a video a month or two ago, probably a couple months ago, a couple videos about Trump during the election. And it's funny because when I was looking at my analytics on my channel one day, I never look at that usually, and I've never really sat and actually seen, the rise and fall of subscriptions, and I saw this downshot during the month of, when I spoke about Trump. And I know that a lot of people unsubscribed or got upset because of the way that I talked about Trump, and that's fine with me. No problem with that. This is what we do. We go from person to person, and we talk about ideas, and we see if our thoughts and ideas resonate with other people. And if they do, then we continue to chat. But sometimes something comes up which will divide people. Let me say this. A lot of my subscribers know that I'm not a Christian, and they may be Christians. And they will remain subscribed to my channel because even though I may have my opinions about religion, there are other common ground issues that we can get along on, that we can agree on. But when it comes to politics, it seems like it's even more intense than religions and beliefs. That political affiliations and our beliefs about leaders and politicians is somehow more set in stone than our beliefs about anything else. That the people who support Trump, I've found, and this is why I stepped away for a couple months to just see what would happen, because people said, hey, wait, the election will happen, he won, what are you going to do about it? And that's exactly how I feel. He won, regardless of people who want to say, oh, the Electoral College is flawed. Yes, the Electoral College sucks, but it is what it is. He played the same system as anybody else, and I basically had to say, well, let's give him a chance, because that's what everyone was saying. Let's see what he does. And so I'll be straight up honest about I'm going to give a positive image, or at least, let me see, if I can think of a positive thing that I like about Trump, if I were to try to pin down anything that I really like about the guy, the only thing that I can think of is him calling out the media's bullshit. However, his tact and method which he goes about it is childish, and he's attacking the wrong ideas. He's not talking about the media's bullshit elaboration on stories in general. All he's concerned about is the media lying about him. And I found that to be pretty arrogant and pretty egotistical, but what do you expect from a guy like that? And I was hoping that he would get into office and maybe make some really good changes that would actually help people. And for example, his idea to cancel Obamacare and replace it with something else. Hey, I understand the issues with the Affordable Care Act. I know that premiums have gone up, and I know that it's a problem that needs to be addressed, that some people can't even afford it. And there's a lot to go on there. I mean, with the whole health insurance thing, we could come up with facts and figures and numbers about how much it costs and where we could divert funds and who should deserve to be helped. But in my eyes, it's more complex than we could ever lay out in a video or even a book. I wrote a paper yesterday. Maybe I'll make a video and read it. But it was about social justice and what I see as social justice. And I was trying to explain how even the people who don't help themselves, the people who, let's say, are the very poorest of the poor, the ones who maybe have food stamps, health insurance, and many that, let's say, don't work or can't find a job or don't want to find a job, regardless of the reasons, there are a lot of people who do what people may call suck off the system, and that sounds wrong. But actually, just saying suck off sounds wrong. Anyhow, the system panders to the rich and the very poor. And this is why the middle class seems to be left out of everything. And this is why they say the middle class is going by the wayside. If you're extremely poor, if you're an immigrant, or if you can't take care of yourself, then the tax money from the country will take care of you, and that's what upsets people. And they want to pull the rug out from under that, not realizing that just because we eliminate health care for a lot of people who may be, we don't, let's just say, for example, we don't want to give health care to anybody who can't afford it. Then what we have is a nation of sick people. And if you look at history and the way that when a country takes care of their own, and when a nation has a healthy population, the workforce gets more done. So when we're talking about jobs, bringing back jobs, all of this is dependent upon whether people can actually work and how sick they are. And as a person who at one point I earned too much to get government health care, and didn't make nearly enough to pay for my own at $1,000 a month or more. And so when I basically spent 4 years with sciatica and never went to the doctor. I went once when I was in excruciating pain, and I paid cash for it, for the emergency visit, and still got nothing resolved because I can't afford, x-rays or anything like that. But I'm also a capable human, and I know that if I really wanted to, I could pay for these things by saving, money. We have choices on what we spend our money on. A person who says they can't afford health care but they smoke cigarettes or, do a lot of, particular drug that costs a lot of money, if they're spending money on other things, that makes for a very, it's hard to say, feel sorry for someone. But we also realize that we're frail, we're humans. We have addictions, we have problems. And what I'm getting at is to help one another. And it seems like there's a lot of division. And this election has opened up a massive chasm of division. And the question is, can it be, can we get over it? In other words, can we come together on some issues? And I'm starting to feel like the issues are too wide. We're too divided in order to come together. It's kind of like if you have a friend who is a thief and a liar and a cheat to everyone else, but not you, let's say. And you do have many things that you agree on. Maybe you're both artists or you're both musicians. And you can agree with many points together, but when it comes to strong values, you don't. Let's say the other person thinks that, lying to get your way and stealing is fine. You may find yourself parting with that friend because you could share 1,000 interests, but if one of your values is off, then it makes it hard to respect that person when you feel like they don't respect others. And I think that with this whole Trump election thing, he's basically done exactly what I thought he was going to do. And unfortunately, I was right because I didn't want to be right. In other words, the idea of drain the swamp to him means that he fills up the swamp with more people. I had a piece of paper here that I was going to get a couple notes off of, but oh, it is here. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. I never finished it. But Trump was talking the other day. He went to the CIA to have that CIA speech, and I've been watching his speeches because I want to know what he's really saying. And he had this, wonderful ovation from the people clapping, and I was very curious about this because here's a guy who has been bashing the CIA for months, comparing them to Nazis and, talking about how crooked they are, and then he goes and has this speech and everybody cheers. I found out that he actually brings his entourage with him, that the people that were clapping, according to the people that were there, the CIA people who were up front, remained pretty quiet, whereas all these people on the sidelines and in the back were clapping and cheering. And everyone was wondering, who are these people? I haven't confirmed this because I'm not there, but judging by the amount of cheers he got, of course he's only going to bring in people who support him. And this makes it tough because this is something that dictators do. They hire people to cheer for them because they're not getting the cheers that they want. And this whole thing, I mean, this just blows me away. You know, the first thing that he does, the first time they send out their White House press secretary, he makes 5 points and 4 of them are complete lies. And it really opens up the stage to say, wait a minute, you know, we expected more. But he spends the whole first whole first, you know, speech that his press secretary has, he sits and defends the size of the crowd at Trump's inauguration. And I saw this this picture that was posted. It was before the speech in the press room. They had set up like 3 or 4 full-size prints of the actual pictures of the crowds. This is the priority of the president and his cabinet, is to prove that people really like them. That's the sign of a very weak individual. And it's so easy for people to think Trump's strong because he acts strong and he talks big. But if you really listen to what he says, you know, the things he said, like he was talking about his how his uncle was an intellectual, and he said, sometimes people ask me if I'm an intellectual, and he goes, I'm real smart. You know, just the type of things that come out of this guy's mouth just make me just roll my eyes and laugh. But I can't laugh it off when it's somebody who's making decisions for the country that I live in. And no, I'm not here to sit and bash Trump. I understand that everyone's issue with Obama, everyone's issue with Clinton. And if people were to ask, well, if you had the choice between Trump and Clinton, like for example, if Trump could get impeached today and Clinton could take his spot, would that be preferable? I don't think so. I feel like we were stuck with 2 dead ends, no matter how you look at it. Clinton is a very small, petty person to me. She is garbage as a leader. I would not want her, and just because she's a woman doesn't mean anything to me. If she was a great woman, then I would respect her and want her as a leader, but she's a conniving bitch. But Trump, on the other hand, the reason why he's so popular is because he's something different, and because he's supposed to shake up the system, and that's the part I like. The problem is that he's shaking the tree and setting up a net to catch all the apples. All the things he's making and all the choices he's making seem to be for the interest of him and his own people. And we don't even know what his intentions are with other countries or how much money he has. He won't release his taxes, fine. He won't leave his businesses, fine. You know, what do you do? But his son-in-law is his White House advisor. The President of the United States chose his fucking son-in-law as his advisor. And I guess maybe I should say, what does the guy actually know? I don't know his son-in-law. I've never met him, and I don't know what studies he has under his belt. But it's my belief that this seems to be more like an oligarchy than anything. It seems to be more like a dominating force. He's bringing in anyone who agrees with him. And he's even said so. You know, if you agree with me, I'm on your side. And if not, as Kelly Conway said, we're keeping a list. You know, and that kind of stuff is fear-mongering. It's hateful. And what's happening with the media is because he's so angry with the media for being liars. And I'm all about that. The problem is that now the media is attacking him even more because they're saying, hell no. You know, he thought when I become president, they're going to stop because we'll put a stop to this. But when you try to suppress freedom of speech, you try to hold it in, it's going to escape anywhere it can, and people will not be put down or, you know, told what to say. You know, it's up to the people to call the media out. You know, the media is pandering and catering to ratings, to views, to money, and this is what the whole system is about. You know, if there was put it this way, in order to have free enterprise and private media, then you have to attract customers to pay for that. But if you go for a government-run media, state-sponsored media, if you expect that to be fair and balanced, you're absolutely delusional because they're only going to pander to themselves. And, you know, the other day, when the press secretary was confronted with, you know, saying that he wasn't speaking the facts, and you should go read the transcript, He says we were providing alternative facts. If you look at the media, of course, it's all over the place, and I avoid going on to. I'm not a CNN, NBC, Fox. I don't watch mainstream news. However, just by seeing the headlines, then you can search out what the truth is for yourself. In other words, the media is still making the effort to find the stories. Doesn't mean they're covering them properly. So it is up to us as individuals to do a little bit of cross-checking and referencing. But I know a lot of folks want to think that the future is bright and want to think that Trump will actually help this country. And I'm starting to just shake my head because it seems like we're living in 1984. The words that are used, the wordplay. It's if you haven't read 1984, I would urge you to read that, and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and several other books that basically lay out the future that we're living in now. And we still have some freedoms. We have freedoms to speak our mind. We have freedoms to elect a completely, we were able to look at the way the system's set up. I mean, a guy got into office on nothing more than being rich and successful, with this image that he would be able to make America rich and successful. But it's like, if you consider wealth and power to be energy, now you picture the only way that you can pass energy from one object to another is for one to lose its energy. And the rich in this country, the rich in this world, have more power than we could ever even begin to touch. And the banking system is the biggest corrupt system that we have. And during 2008, when the housing crisis happened, they told us the only way to fix our economy was to bail out the banks. So trillions of dollars to the banks, and they proceeded to give $1 million in bonuses to their people, as we expected they would, and no intention of paying it back. So here, we the people bailed out the banks for all the bad decisions they made. And in a way, that's not bailing out the people. What if we were bailing out the actual people that had taken these bad loans or been given these bad loans, instead of bailing out the banks so they can continue? Why is a bank more important than a person, than individuals? Because they have the power, and they're run by Rothschilds and all the rest of them, Rockefellers. All of this whole system is just fucked up. But you can't think that way. You can't dwell on that part. We have to figure out what we can actually do, the things that we really can change, if anything. When you're talking about how big your crowd sizes are, and trying to prove how big your hands are and your cock and anything else like this guy did, it just shows a strong weakness. And do I believe that Trump is owned by other countries or that he's working for Russia? No, of course not. But do I believe that they are smarter than him and were able to basically convince him one way or another that, these are the decisions they want? Removing trade restrictions and embargoes. And, for the average person, knowing whether this is a good choice or not, it's tough. Think about the TPP and NAFTA. He wants to dismantle NAFTA. He's already going to leave the TPP, which is Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is 12 different countries with open trade, basically. And if you really look at the details, this may be a great thing to eliminate. It said that it generally only benefits people that make over $80,000 a year, and the average person would end up losing their ass. It does increase labor and wage, it has minimum wage and other issues like this within other countries where it may do good for some people. But in the long run, all it is to try to beat out China and to try to have it's kind of like an EU, but for us. And I can't say that I disagree with that. If he wants to eliminate some of these, these agreements and trades that we have, so be it if it benefits the people. But it makes me suspicious when a person makes a decision which may be based on what they can gain from it. And I don't know the facts, I don't know the details, and in this situation all I have to go by is the man himself and the way that he's behaving. You know, everybody that Trump's put in office in his cabinet have been people that either, you know, have completely fucked things up for whatever group they're in. For example, the, you know, who he's got for, you know, the education department and, you know, urban housing development, you know, and Steve Bannon in there. And he put in, what is it, Rick Perry is in charge of the nukes, and he took the job, and I guess he didn't even realize that that was part of the job until later. And these people are just thrown in. This is all a picture. These aren't people who have worked for a position or really deserve it or care. It's just a matter of getting in people who he agrees with and agree with him most of all. And that's scary, because a lot of people don't agree with him, and therefore he's going to lose the potential to have a lot of good people helping out. You know, only the future will tell where this is going to go from here. When I stepped back for a couple of months and said, gave Trump a chance and said, maybe he will be able to do this. Maybe he's not so bad, but he's even worse. Now he's spending his first speeches defending the size of his crowds. I mean, what kind of a person does these things? For all the people out there who said, well, Trump is just saying these things to get elected, you're right, and he even admitted it, you know, in some of his final speeches. He said, hey, you know, it makes good crowds, or, you know, it makes for a good election, and it sounds good on paper. He's admitted these things over and over, and the people just cheer for him. And then folks would say, well, once he's actually in office, you'll see, he'll be a different person. Well, he's in office now, and he's not a different person. So I'd like to lead by saying, you know, I was a little bit harsh on Trump supporters, and I realize everyone has their own opinions. What I'd like to do is say for a minute, it's not Trump supporters. It's not Trump voters that I have had a problem with. It was Trump supporters, the ones who supported his attitude, his behavior, the things he was going to do. I've heard people say, like a girl yesterday, she said, well, I voted for Trump because he's going to outlaw abortion, no more killing babies. And another person that's like, you know, I voted for Obama because he's going to deport all those Muslims. You know, we can get rid of terrorism. Now, these types of things are just ridiculous. And there's a lot of selective confirmation bias out there where people are just hearing what they want to hear. And that's just what we do. But I think it's time that we all step back a little bit and say, you know, what's really going on here? Is this guy really who we thought he was? Because I haven't heard very many Trump supporters. There is a page called Trump Grets, where they're posting all the tweets and whatnot of people who say, I voted for him with these hopes, but he's already let us down. But then there are folks who will stand behind him regardless of what he does. And that's the scary thing. It's okay to admit that you made a mistake if you believe that he's not fulfilling obligations to help you. The world is a complicated place. And eliminating a couple of trade deals and making new restrictions on immigration, you know, these things may help. But in the short term, we have bigger issues. In my opinion, burning fossil fuels in this country and fracking is causing a lot of devastation to smaller communities. Places in Texas where the drinking water is completely polluted because of fracking. And he's been very vocal about he wants to open up federal lands for fracking and drilling because he wants to be energy independent. Well, energy independence, it may be wonderful in the short term, but in the long term, the damage that we're doing is astronomical. I'm not going to get into global warming because I know there will always be somebody who will say, oh, don't you know? These things happen all the time. Global warming is a normal process. Regardless, the CO2 levels in the atmosphere can be measured. There's a specific form of CO2, which is only from carbon emissions and burning of fossil fuels, not from volcanoes, not from the ocean. And this can be specifically measured, and you can look at the evidence to say, yes, we're causing, whether or not we're causing global warming, we are adding to it by our factories and fuels. Doesn't mean that we have to stop using fossil fuels completely. That's ridiculous. But trying to curb emissions and trying to eliminate too much pollution is a useful thing, and he wants to eliminate that. He wants to eliminate all restrictions on companies and pollution, and I say fuck that. I say that this is the one thing that I stand up for is the earth. I don't care if the political system eats itself alive. But when you're damaging the planet that we live on, that our grandkids will live on, that's something we all have to speak up for. Energy independence is a short-term fix. And the truth is, America would run out of oil pretty damn quick if we tried to be energy independent. There's always going to be a need to trade with the rest of the world. And we have to realize that. So, I'm going to protect what I know to be right and stand up against these things. But I'm only one person, and I don't know all the answers. None of us do. But we work together. And as a whole, generally, a majority of Americans dislike Trump and his policies, regardless of whether he won or not. And I believe if you consider the actual number of votes, and it's like something like 40 million, there's 360 million people in this country. So there are people who support him, there are people who are against him, and then there are people who are just waiting to see what happens and don't care either way. Regardless of what happens when he's in office, the environment that we're trying to protect, it's so much more than just restrictions and laws. It's very complex. Anyway, I don't know where else to go with it. It's kind of an interesting time. So we'll just see what happens now, and hopefully something will come of it that will benefit the people. We'll see. Take care, everybody.